Hello, and welcome to our first ever episode of Seize the Data. I'm Tina Patia, Head of Business Development here at DataLogs. Seize the Data is a digestible podcast series discussing some of the largest challenges in the data space and talking through how to solve them. We'll have renowned global data leaders on this series from various industries to diversify perspectives. If you are or have a leader in the data space you'd like for us to interview, send them our way. Now, our first ever guest is Philip Black. Philip is the CEO and founder of DataQG, a community-driven data governance resource platform. Founded in 2021 and listed as one of the top 25 startups to watch for in 2022, DataQG is a space for organizations and professionals to learn from the latest market trends, collaborate with peers, and utilize curated industry content. Phil was recently listed as CDO Magazine's Top 40 Under 40 Data Leaders, recognized for his leading market vision and innovative approach to the data governance space. Phil is passionate about data governance, community, diversity, market disruption, and business growth. He brings over 15 years of technology and leadership experience from spearheading teams at niche data consulting firms to large enterprises like IBM. Phil and his team are looking forward to growing the mind share of data governance and community-driven knowledge to organizations across the globe. Now I'm going to hand it over to Logan Havern, our CEO and founder, to take it away.
Thanks, Tina, for that introduction. Today, we're very excited to have Phil on the first episode of the Data Debacles podcast by DataLogs. So Phil is joining us as the founder and CEO of DataQG. Thanks for taking the time today. We really appreciate it and are very excited to interview you. So the first question, we just want to get to know you a little bit better. So if you could tell us about your dream job growing up, that would be amazing.
Sure. First off, thank you for having me. I think it's an honor to be the first guest ever. My first dream job. So when I was younger, I don't think I really had a dream job per se. I did want to become a professional baseball player when I was very young, but that obviously didn't work out very well. My mother wanted me to get into social work. That also didn't really wasn't my path at the time, but she wanted me to help out with people in the community. But I went to school for business, so I am actually doing my dream job at this point in time. Right, I worked a lot of different odd jobs. You can probably look on my LinkedIn and see my profile. Dozens and dozens of jobs growing up, through high school, college, and whatnot. And I'm very, very lucky to be where I am today and running my own firm.
Oh, very cool. I'm sad your professional baseball career didn't work out, but
it's okay.
Hopefully today is equally as exciting. But how'd you go from, I guess, that business background then into the data space?
So my first, we'll call it an office job, was at a services firm. And the firm focused on helping organizations from both a data perspective, but also other areas of technology. So we handled embedded systems, hardware, infrastructure, and I sort of gravitated towards data. It was something that was very interesting to me. And this was this was over a decade ago. I managed a team there. I had a team of about 10 or 12 people on the client services side. And one of my old employees actually moved to IBM. And he's like, Phil, you'll love it over here. So I made the jump. I made the jump to the data governance team. And this was about 8 or 9 years ago. So data governance was perceived a little bit differently. It was definitely something that wasn't looked at by many organizations, but it was a very unique position in the analytics brand. And I really, really got a passion for it because there was sort of different pillars within IBM. There was AI and database, and then there was governance, which was more difficult to learn. It was more difficult working with customers because they were on their journey trying to figure out how do I govern this data. But it was the most rewarding because so much work was put into it, and it was almost like being the underdog in the data space, right? Being in the governance space. But from there, I moved to a consulting firm that was partners with IBM, but we did implementations pretty much front to back. So anywhere from ETL to BI and everything in between. So we really help customers through their data journey, period. And I was always focused sort of on the governance area. We had counterparts that did integration and AI and machine learning, but I was always really stuck in that governance space. It was the network that I grew. It was the connections that I made, and it was special to me. Right, governance was very special to me. So it helped me build what we have here today, DataQG.
Very cool. Would you be able to tell us a little bit more about DataQG? And then that
Yes.
experience, like going from IBM to that, it sounds like a natural fit.
Yeah, it does. It's also a little bit of a different fit, going from just like a large organization with so much support to a ground level startup. But it was very exciting. I mean, the people I met throughout my career, they're lifetime connections, and even from both client and internal. So DataQG is a data governance resource platform, and we're centered around our community. And what I mean by resource platform, we have built essentially a centralized hub of resources from a variety of sources. Our philosophy on data governance is that there is no one size fits all, and we embrace everyone's different opinion. So there are organizations over the past 10 or 20 years that have made frameworks, business models, data models, approaches that have worked very, very well for organizations. And we have customers and clients and groups that say this is outstanding, but it doesn't actually fit with what's happening with my company. And we feel like that data governance is so unique because it is a people driven industry. It's driven by people, it's driven by culture, and obviously supported by existing and emerging technologies as well. So we said, we're not going to have an opinion on data governance. We embrace everyone's opinion, and we want to partner and build a community with everyone so we can essentially gain as many resources as possible. So the goal really for us is a place for data leaders and data teams to collaborate with each other, to understand what other members are doing in the industry without having a biased point of view, sort of, I don't want to say pushed down their throat, but to be able to make a decision on their own. Almost like we're moving towards a crowdsourced and peer-to-peer environment throughout the world. I mean, look at Yelp, look at anything. Before we go to a restaurant, we understand like what are other people doing. And data governance is so unique. We felt like a platform like this was needed in the industry.
Got it. Wow. Yeah, it's incredible. And I've been a part of the community now for, I don't know, at least 4 or 5 months, but just seeing the insights within there and also just so many takeaways that I'm able to apply to my product, my clients as well, is it's just a great place to really go in and learn. I'm just curious. So the community seems like it's growing very, very quickly. Is there any members or other things that really excite you, or you were kind of surprised that someone at a certain company joined? And then also, if it's confidential, no need to call it out by any means.
No, that's fine. So thank you for your kind words about the community. You have also been contributing to the community. I see you, you're active, you come in, you provide thought leadership. Really the goal is to make everyone comfortable, right? Obviously we invite all of our vendors because we don't feel like one vendor is better than the other. We feel like everyone has something to offer. Whether you're at a software company, a consulting firm, a data leader, a CDO, but a data steward, a data catalog specialist, a master data management specialist that really have never been put on a platform where their voices are heard. So we have a blog platform, we have the Slack room, we have a private community, we do videos as well. We're trying to almost amplify the voices of people that have never been heard, that have so much knowledge. Some of these people have been doing this for, 10, 20 years, working with a variety different of industries and clients, or doing it for their own organization. And for us to have a platform for them to actually amplify what they've experienced is everything to us. So are there individuals who I'm very excited about? Yeah, that is a little confidential, but I think everyone has a little bit of something to offer, no matter how high you are in the leadership or if you're just getting started, right? I think right now, today, there are more data governance opportunities at companies than there ever has been. And the lack of people and resources are astounding, because no one was going to school for data governance 5 years ago. If you talk to people in a data governance manager role now, everyone comes from a different background. And they're like, I didn't know I was going to actually get into data governance, but I'm here and now I love it. We have people with legal backgrounds, data backgrounds, administrative backgrounds. So I think it depends on the industry if it's more compliance or insights driven. But there's one common theme that people in the governance space are very passionate about it. They're very passionate.
And why do you think that growth within data governance has really shown these past few years?
So two reasons, which are the two drivers for data governance. One is compliance, privacy. 5-10 years ago, it was more around financial regulations, insurance regulations, healthcare. Those were really the three pillars that data governance was shining at, and it still is today. But as we move towards a data-rich environment with individuals and individuals' privacy, consumer companies, CPG companies, social media companies are dealing with almost the exact same regulations that the banks were dealing with before and still now today. We see it with large social media companies, which I won't mention, but we as consumers, we understand every time that we pick up our cell phone, like this company knows who I am already. They know what I might want to buy or my family members. So privacy is very important, both from an organization perspective, protecting themselves from the regulators and being fined, and making sure that they're giving rights to the consumer. But also, Logan, is you and I mean, what rights do we have? So compliance is definitely driving this. The second area is insights. We used to talk to organizations about you guys have to look at data as an asset, and having that conversations with legacy and old school companies was pretty common. And I don't think people are having that conversation anymore, because everyone knows now. Everyone knows that data is an asset. We're a startup that's been on the market for 10, 11 months, and we're already obtaining social media data, all of our analytics, our internal data, HR data, everything. And now, as a data governance community, we're like, we have to start governing this stuff if we want to make better business decisions. But you can look on the market, the companies that are really doing true data governance and then pushing it to downstream AI and making true analytical decisions off their data have a competitive advantage. So twofold: compliance and analytics. To stay competitive in this market as a company, you have to be data driven. You have to be, right? And then you have to protect yourself. So it's risk and make money, save money, right?
Right. Yeah, I completely agree. Data provides such a competitive advantage. My quote that I always go back to is, data is the new oil. It just really produces more and more, can give you insights, actionable ways to take away and really implement in your company and really make a difference. And then on the compliance side, so I always hear about GDPR, CCPA. Are there any other major regulations that are constantly popping up in the data governance world?
So it's funny, because I've been living. I'm based out of Boston, and I've worked with companies in Europe. Obviously, GDPR was a little bit before United States. So California CCPA, but I believe there's like 7 or 8 states now that are about to pass a law. I mean, it's like running. It's already been approved, and it's happening sometime in 2022 or 2023.
Oh wow!
I think it's Virginia, New York, Colorado, and don't quote me on this, because I might get it incorrect. But Korea has their own laws. India has their own laws.
Oh wow!
Every state, country, area in the world is really taking into account privacy for data. So these laws aren't going anywhere. My prediction, it will be federal within X amount of years. It has to be, right? Because each states are going to do it on an individual level. Europe has already done it. It's just a matter of time before the U.S. makes a federal law about data privacy. And me personally, just outside of all organization stuff, I think there should be, right? There should be control about what people are doing with your data or my data, and who has control of it, and do I own it? Right? There's whole organizations around really trying to put the power back into the user of this is my data, can I own it, and then can you sell it? But that's a whole different story.
Right, right. And do you think these new regulations, and I didn't even realize there was that many just within the US,
Mm-hmm.
heard about a few
Oh
of
yeah.
the new international ones popping up,
Mm-hmm.
but do you think
Yep.
that can hinder or prevent companies from fully leveraging or utilizing their data? Or do you think with the right data governance strategy, you can find a way to basically have that point one of governance where you are meeting regulatory requirements, being safe with data, but also generating actual insight? So how do you balance the two when they almost seem like one prevents the other?
I don't think one prevents the other. I think companies can still use whatever data is available outside of the regulations to make business decisions, right? I mean, most of the regulations are around, um, you know, sensitive data, right to be forgotten, masking of social security numbers and credit card numbers and things like that. It's more around protecting people's like personal information, but obviously these articles are very robust. I think it is a company's right to work around these regulations. Obviously, I don't know what's coming down the pipe, how stringent they're going to be, but I think every single day companies are obtaining new data. I mean, your company data logs, my company DataQG. I think of the company of the data that was created today through emails, through LinkedIn, through Slack, everything. I mean, we're obtaining so much data, and there has to be some sort of regulation around it. So I guess to answer your question, I think companies are going to be fine. There's so much data out there. There's plenty to work with to make good business decisions, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, that's good that one doesn't prevent the other. Because I think with the right strategy, it's very easy, not very easy, that's why data
Yeah.
governance exists, but to build those regulatory requirements, but also really drive insights and find ways to do that in parallel. And then a little bit switching gears here. So just
Sure.
going back to I guess, a simpler point, but in about 2 to 3 sentences, the simplest definition you have, what is data governance?
Okay. So I'm hesitant to respond to this question, but I'm going to. But here's why.
Okay.
No, I am. I'm going to. So within our Slack community, we had a contest about maybe 2 months ago, and we wanted people to provide us with their definition on data governance. Because there is no true definition on data governance if you look it up on a standard perspective. We got so many different answers. I mean, totally opposite sides of the spectrum. Data governance is around creating a data governance committee. Data governance is around creating rules and policies. Data governance is around giving access to data teams. So our philosophy as a company is everyone is correct. Data governance is all of that, but obviously some people disagree with others. I do have a very simple term for data governance, and this is my personal opinion. Data governance is the process of preparing your data for insights or compliance.
Okay.
That's as simple as I can get. And I think you can get very granular with that. Well, what do you do? Do you create a stewardship center? Do you do this? But I think it's the process of just preparing your data, making sure it's organized and ready for whatever it's going to happen downstream, whether it's compliance or insights. It's step one. It's the foundation of a house. This was told to me many, many years ago, and it stuck with me. If you're going to build a house, you need a foundation. If you build a house without the foundation, it's going to look nice. You can put a pool in the front. That's your AI and your machine learning. But if there's no foundation, everything's going to fall down, right? So data governance is the plumbing. It's the foundation. It might not be as sexy, but it's needed, right? It's needed to make things work. It's the foundation of all of our data insights. Yep.
I love that. It makes absolute sense. Without a good structure,
Yep.
You can't even start building the AI, ML, doing the analytics. And actually, that challenge you mentioned in the Slack channel. So one response really stood out for me. I can't remember his name off the top of mind, but it's the gentleman who I believe is the director at Adidas, but records the data governance songs. So
Yes, yes,
I'm not sure if you've had any part of that, but every time I hear one of those, it just always cheers up my day.
I didn't have part in it, but he did post it in the Slack room. I'm trying to find it right now, and this video is going viral. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
I think it's getting more hits than like the newest Drake song that's on the market right now. But no, I mean there's like I think there's like hundreds of thousands of views on YouTube, and we so I speak with him a lot. He's a part of the community, and he is doing good work in the fact that he's helping rebrand and reshape the image of data governance. Like I talked about before, it's had this dark cloud. It's the definition that were in people's mind was the most rigid definition, that you need executive sponsorship with a group and a policy and a council, which is true for many organizations, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you can still start small. Organizations can still start a little bit of data governance. We do it at our company, right? We don't have a tool for data governance, but we have a process in place for when data is received, when data comes here, when data comes there. It's instilling it within the culture. But what he's doing, making data governance rap songs, is exactly what the community needs. We need to get the younger generation excited about it. We need to put a funner spin on it. The whole world has been focusing on data science, and data science is now realizing that data governance, we should be best friends, right? Because we're going to make data science better.
Right. And what are some of
Yep.
those kind of first easy steps that you mentioned, like without having to require company-wide buy-in, just as an initiative or something smaller to just get started in data governance that you've seen be successful?
Yeah, so there's so many different approaches, and this is more from like a consulting perspective.
Okay.
But one that sort of stuck out to me, and I think a lot of people will agree with, is start very, very small. Maybe even rebrand your governance program, name it something different. Project Stealth, I don't know. Doing some marketing around it and tying it to the path of least resistance from a business value perspective. So, if you're doing data governance just to do data governance, it can be done, but it's hard, right? Because you're doing it to doing it. And you're setting up policies and rules and et cetera. But if you try to find a very small business use case where you can say, all right, this is maybe a little project that 2 or 3 of us can work on, and we can show value to the business within 3 to 6 months, and they can save money or reduce costs, and just have a very, very small win. Once you have that win, socializing it within the organization, saying, listen, this is what we did with Project Stealth or whatever you want to call it. It's working. Let's duplicate it to another line of business. So I'm not saying that this is the right way, but this is a way that I've seen work for growing adoption within a company.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, and I like that. It
Yep.
almost shifts the mindset rather than, okay, we need a data governance checkbox for compliance. Instead, we're
Yep.
adding true business value here that is actually actionable and makes a real impact, makes a real difference on reporting. And I think it can start definitely small rather than having to be a huge chunk or time suck. Instead, just those baby steps, incremental, to at least get started in governance.
Yeah, and I mean, as a CEO of a data catalog company, if I'm a data owner at an organization and I say I don't have a catalog and I'm using SQL Server, or DB2, or Oracle or whatever, for me to just have access to a catalog folder of just organized data that I need that's just relevant to me, or I can point someone to that's relevant for them, the amount of time that can be saved and process that can be built is just, it's astronomical, right? We don't have to look at data governance as, okay, we have to set up this giant program, right? I mean, you can start small, whether you are doing it with a technology stack or not.
Right. Completely agree. And then how about in terms of company size where you really see data governance make the biggest impact? Or is it more impactful to bigger companies? Are mid-sized companies still seeing advantages? I know you mentioned DataQG. You have a few policies in place, but really, where is there any key area that it really makes a difference?
So I think historically it's started at the larger companies, right? The large banks, large insurance companies. Every single year that happens, smaller companies are adopting data governance. I spoke with a media entertainment company. I spoke with an electric bike company the other week. Um, it, it, it's any company that has an initiative for data is getting started with data governance now. So I think 2022 right now has the highest adoption of data governance I've ever seen before. Ever seen before. Yep, ever seen before. And we're seeing it in all industries. I mean, if you go into the community and see people's background, we have every industry, sports, entertainment, you name it. So I still think we have a little bit of a ways to go from adoption. If I walk out on the street and I walk up to a stranger and I say, you know what data governance is, they're probably not going to know. They're probably not. But if I ask someone what data science is, I bet 3 out of 4 or maybe 2 out of 4 people will know. So our goal, your goal, I think everyone's goal within the community is really to grow awareness for what data governance is, whether it is a very small definition, like I said, or a larger definition. But just changing the mindset. So back to your question, I think we're seeing adoption from medium-sized companies, small companies now. Even the small companies that understand data are doing it off the bat, because when it's an afterthought, it's very difficult. If you have 15, 20 different source systems that are legacy, there's different integrations. One of the biggest problems with data governance today with companies that are trying to adopt it that have been around is really integrating the metadata and then making sense of the metadata within it, whether it's in a catalog or lineage or quality. So the earlier you adopt, the easier it is down the line. So for all the young companies out there, data governance, good.
And that would be a great next DataQG YouTube series, going out on the streets of Boston or New York. Hey,
maybe,
what do you think of data governance? And get that opinion. I think it'll be really exciting. And then I know we're almost running out of time here. Just
sure.
One more question, and this is more putting on your consulting hat. So I'm curious about, as companies kind of implement their data stack. So we talk to a lot of younger companies just establishing or moving data into the cloud. We talk to older companies who are basically redesigning their whole entire data ecosystem from some technology that was around the last 10 years to a little bit more modern technology. So as companies are kind of establishing their data framework and their data ecosystem, what is the right timing for data governance? Is it as you're building it? Is it after you have all your data migrated into kind of a centralized warehouse? Or what is that right time frame to really get started on a governance program?
I think the answer is it depends. It depends on the people, right? It depends on who is going to help you adopt data governance and who's going to run it, right? Is it going to be run by IT? Is it going to be run by the line of business? Is it going to be run by risk? It's very difficult for me to say at what stage, but what we're seeing a lot and what I've seen a lot is it is an afterthought in what's been happening, right? So when they're building out their data stack, data warehousing is the first thing that they want, right? ETL and data warehousing is the first thing that they want. Obviously, everyone wants good business reporting, so they're choosing one of the nice business tools, and then they're thinking about data cataloging. But I think right now it's changing, and people realize that they almost need that metadata layer prior to consumption of data warehouse. But some disagree. Some say let's put everything in the warehouse and then we'll start governing it afterwards. So it's a hard question for me to answer. I think it depends on company culture, executive buy-in, and really the strategy of data within the organization.
Okay, got it. So it's definitely not science fits all.
No.
Sit down about themselves.
Yeah, and I think companies can still say they're doing data governance, like we talked about before, from a smaller perspective. Just because someone doesn't have the title of a data steward, you could have a few members on the data team who are helping doing some small quality checks, right? or documenting where data is flowing from a governance perspective. There's no reason that companies can't start small without doing this whole boil the ocean perspective. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, I completely agree. There's just always that one smaller starting point to really just dive into it, get started. And I guess the timing of it is important. But I think at the end of the day is we want to make sure we're adding value to the business. And that timing can change, but that's the end goal here. But Phil,
Absolutely.
I know we're about at time, but I just want to thank you so much for coming on to the first episode of the Data
You're very
Debacles
welcome.
podcast with Datalog. So really appreciate it.
No problem. It was a pleasure talking to you. Pleasure being here. We'll talk soon.
Sounds good. We'll cheer you out here. And thank you so much, Phil.
No problem.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.